If you had to choose, the single greatest and most mysterious structure ever built by man, the Great Pyramid of Giza would be a formidable candidate. Alongside the Sphinx, the Great Pyramids of Egypt are the favorite subject of adventure films, thrillers, and horror stories. The Giza complex is theorized by some to have been built at least 12,000 years ago, long before the ancient Egyptians, and, possibly, by a prehistoric civilization. To this day, there is no complete, official answer to the pyramid's mysteries. It's no accident that of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Great Pyramid is the only one left standing. The conventional understanding is that ancient Egyptians built the Giza pyramids around 2500 BC. But this theory has several massive holes. First, the logistics. Scientists estimate the pyramid contains 2.4 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2 to 4 tons, with some weighing up to 15 tons. In the middle of the desert, how did the ancient Egyptians transport and lift these colossal blocks? Many theories have been proposed, but from an architectural perspective, none are truly convincing. Second, the construction and design. The Giza complex is built differently. It has no internal frame. The stability comes from the precisely cut stones themselves. These pyramids also lack any religious symbols or hieroglyphs inside. This raises suspicion that they weren't built by the Egyptians, who famously carved every tomb. Furthermore, the pyramid is not 4-sided. It is, in fact, an 8-sided pyramid. Each face has a slight indentation, a concavity of about 0.5 to 1 degree. This splits each face in two, creating a special 8-sided surface. This is a technique we would struggle to replicate, even with today's technology. Third, the location and alignment. The Giza complex is positioned with incredible precision. It sits exactly at the intersection of the longest line of latitude and the longest line of longitude. This places it at the geographic center of Earth's landmass. Moreover, the 3 main pyramids, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, are not only perfectly aligned on the ground, they also align perfectly with the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Astronomers also point out that the Giza complex is oriented to true north with astonishing accuracy. Despite being built millennia ago, it is the most accurately aligned structure on Earth. How did ancient people, supposedly over 2,000 years ago, have such precise surveying and astronomical knowledge? To explain these anomalies, researchers Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock proposed a different timeline. They argue the Great Sphinx must have been carved from natural rock before the area was covered in sand. The only time this was possible was around 12,000 years ago. The ancient Egyptians didn't exist then. Furthermore, archaeologists found a 4.3-meter thick layer of sediment around the pyramid's base, containing fossilized seashells dated to nearly 11600 years old. This suggests the pyramids and Sphinx must have been built at least 12,000 years ago, possibly existing before the last ice age. This massive time gap also means they weren't built by the ancient Egyptians. It's more likely the Egyptians merely discovered this site and its incredible preservation abilities. Food, milk, and coins left inside don't spoil or rust. They then used it as a tomb, building smaller, inferior copies nearby. Interestingly, archaeologists have found numerous giant skeletons worldwide, dating back 12500 years. The same era, these beings were estimated to be 4 to 12 meters tall. For them, building these monuments would be like us building a skyscraper today. So who built it? These historians believe the structures were built by an advanced, ancient civilization, perhaps Atlantis, which was ultimately destroyed by a great flood. Hancock suggests these survivors spread out, one group arriving in Egypt. They would have possessed the technology to build the pyramids, a feat that requires incredibly high-tech precision. No one else could have done this, he argues. The smaller pyramids at Giza, those could be man-made, but the Great Pyramid, with 2.25 million stone blocks, some weighing 250 tons, it's simply not reasonable to think the Egyptians built that. We couldn't even move those blocks today. This implies a lost civilization, far more advanced than our own. The existence of advanced prehistoric civilizations isn't just theory. Archaeologists have found strange artifacts that support this. In 1968, a collector found a 5 cm thick slab of rock. Embedded in it was a human shoe print, stepping on a fossilized trilobite. This baffled scientists. Trilobites vanished 250 million years ago. How could a human, wearing shoes, a clear sign of civilization, to step on one, were taught? Galileo invented the telescope in 1609, but a 3,000-year-old stone found in Peru is carved with a figure in modern-looking clothes, holding a telescope, observing the stars. Other stones depict blood transfusions and organ transplants. In 1972, a French factory imported uranium ore from Gabon, Africa. They discovered the uranium had already been used. At the site, they found a large-scale nuclear reactor, 1.8 billion years old, which had operated for 5,000,000 years. Its design was so advanced, we cannot replicate it today. Many scientists now admit that multiple advanced civilizations may have existed and vanished. The idea that we are the first is likely wrong. Transition. But while the pyramids hold deep mysteries, so do the pharaohs who were buried within them. Born around 1341 BC, Tutankhaten, or living image of Aten, ruled Egypt as Tutankhamun for 10 years, until his death at 19. His father was the heretic King Akhenaten, who plunged Egypt into chaos by banning the old gods in favor of a single god, Aten. At age 9, Tutankhamun took the throne and married his half-sister. He was too young to rule, so his advisors, I and General Horemheb, governed for him. They immediately reversed his father's revolution, abolishing the cult of Aten and restoring the traditional polytheistic gods. King Tut moved the capital back to Thebes and began repairing the old temples. He successfully restored order and stability. After his death, Tutankhamun was mummified according to Egyptian tradition. But why did he die so young? Theories abound. He was physically weak, with a bone disease in his left foot, likely the result of incest. 2010 DNA tests confirmed his parents were brother and sister. A hole in the back of his skull led some historians to conclude he was assassinated, but recent exams suggest this hole was made during the mummification process. A 1995 CT scan showed he had a broken left leg. DNA from his mummy also revealed evidence of malaria. Any of these could have caused his death, but the search for his death's cause opened up another story. The curse of the pharaohs. Analysts claim hieroglyphs in the tomb promised death to anyone who disturbed King Tut. Records show that over 10 people on the original expedition died mysteriously, fueling the curse. In 1923, archaeologist Howard Carter and his sponsor, Lord Carnarvon, officially opened the tomb. 2 months later, Carnarvon died from blood poisoning from an infected mosquito bite on his cheek. The press speculated he was the first victim of the curse. A scientific explanation suggested deadly, dormant mold or bacteria inside the tomb. However, experts noted Carnarvon was already chronically ill before he entered the tomb. Decades later, the string of unusual deaths remains a mystery. Interestingly, a 2002 study noted that the curse did not seem to affect the native Egyptian members of the team. Inside the tomb, Carter found 2 daggers wrapped in the mummy's bandages. One had a gold blade, the other had a blade made of iron. In King Tut's time, iron was rarer and more valuable than gold, as it was a metal from the sky, mostly sourced from meteorites. Other iron objects were found in the tomb, but this second dagger was special. It was an exquisitely crafted product. Some believe it was not made in Egypt. Historical records note the dagger was a gift from a neighboring king before Tut was born. It was placed in a prominent spot, leading some to believe it was used in Tut's mummification ceremony. The golden death mask shows an idealized young man, but a virtual autopsy using CT scans, genetic analysis, and over 2,000 digital scans revealed a harsher truth. King Tut was not the strong leader depicted in art. He was born with deformities. He was frail, had a clubfoot, and likely suffered from epilepsy and malaria. He walked with a cane. The study concluded that Tutankhamun was physically incapable of riding a chariot as he was often depicted. The reason? The incestuous marriage of his parents. His early death likely required a hasty burial, placing his body in a small tomb intended for a lower noble. After his burial, he was largely forgotten, until Howard Carter rediscovered the sealed tomb in 1922, 3,200 years later. The treasures within made Tutankhamun the most famous pharaoh in the world. Transition. But the story of King Tut brought us the Pharaoh's curse. What is the truth behind it? The curse on the tomb warned, death will come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king. As noted, after 22 expedition members died mysteriously, people panicked. One man, who catalogued the tomb, died of a strange, paralyzing illness. The expert who x-rayed the mummy also weakened and died. An Egyptian biologist, who visited the tomb, later hanged himself, writing that the curse drove him to it. Even the director of the Cairo Museum, who didn't believe in the curse, suddenly died less than 4 weeks after handling artifacts from Tut's tomb. Could it be toxic bacteria? In 1963, a professor found a toxic pathogenic fungus on people who had entered the tombs, which could cause fatal respiratory inflammation. But how could this fungus survive for 4,000 years? In 1983, a French doctor proposed it was a hypersensitive allergic reaction to the mold produced by the fruits, vegetables, and foods buried with the pharaohs. The curse might be something else entirely. Other scientists hypothesize that the structure of the pyramid itself, its angles, its alignment, creates a field. Perhaps it collects and emits radiation, magnetic vibrations, or energy waves. This is the pyramid power that allegedly preserves fruit and sharpens blades. This mystery attracted even the great general, Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1798, during his campaign in Egypt, Napoleon was fascinated by the pyramids. He brought scientists, surveyors, and archaeologists with him. The team that found the Rosetta Stone, deciphering hieroglyphs, wanting to experience the mystery himself, Napoleon demanded to be left alone, overnight, in the king's chamber, inside the Great Pyramid. The next morning, when Napoleon emerged from the chamber, his face was pale, strange, and terrified. He had clearly seen something horrific. When his worried aides asked what happened, Napoleon refused to comment, ordering them to never mention it again. Years later, on his deathbed, a close friend asked him what he experienced in the pyramid. Napoleon started to speak, then stopped. He shook his head and said, "No, what's the use? You would never believe me." What Napoleon saw inside the Great Pyramid died with him. Napoleon wasn't the last. In 1930, a British journalist, Paul Brunton, also spent a night in the king's chamber. He described the experience in his book. As the night grew dark, he first saw shadowy ghosts swirling around him. He was terrified, but stayed. Then, a worse feeling. His body became paralyzed. He couldn't move. At that moment, Figures in ceremonial robes, asci, like ancient priests, appeared. They led him to a secret room called the Hall of Learning. There, he felt his soul slowly fall out of his body. An out-of-body experience. He saw his physical body, lying motionless on the floor, connected to his hovering soul by a silver cord. These ancient guides, he claimed, told him the Great Pyramid was built during the 4th dynasty. But, at the time of the survivors of Atlantis, they told him all the secrets of the pyramid's chambers before he woke up the next morning. Brunton believed these priests were real, living inside the pyramid. Experts, however, suggest they were spirits, proving that the soul is immortal. Perhaps this is why the Egyptians placed their dead in the pyramids, the perfect preservation chamber, not just for the body, but for the soul. Scientists studying the king's chamber, made of granite or spirit stone, found it contains an electric field that can cause mild shocks. A NASA physicist also discovered radiation in a room behind the king's chamber. More bizarrely, dating suggests the top of the pyramid is 1,000 years older than the bottom, leading to wild speculation that it was built upside down first. Other researchers, like Scottish occultist Lewis Spence and engineer David Davidson, believe the pyramid is a prophecy in stone. They argue that all major human historical events are encoded in its precise measurements, diagrams, and internal pathways. Astronomers also note the pyramid's entrance shaft, pointed perfectly at the pole star Thuban. In 4000 BC, the structure seems to be an astronomical clock, marking the precession of the stars. Does this alignment, this energy, have a connection to the souls Brunton claimed to see? What do you think? Share your opinion in the comments below. We will continue this discussion. But for now, hello and thank you for watching. Subscribe to catch the next videos.